Well, hello, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend and have enjoyed yourself and are having a happy Monday. Monday it has been, yeah, for sure. But anyway, welcome. I enjoy having you all in the chat, seeing your busy little bumblebees in there humming about. Appreciate you. Nice to see you all. And of course, got the fascinating, amazing, incredible, bright, intelligent Mr. Biles Johnston waiting in the back to talk to us about fighting back consciousness field. So we are definitely looking forward to that conversation. However, before we do, we need to bring up the announcements for the week. Okay, let me make my screen big because grandma's eyes need to be stretched a little bit. Okay, so of course today is Monday. We have Miles Johnston with us, so wait just a few minutes and we will have that one. Tomorrow's Sherry Sweeney. What an amazing, interesting guest. New guest on ARA, and that's at 6 o'clock in the evening, which is 2 hours later than now, wherever in the world you are. Sherry Sweeney has actually been on with Jerry Marzinski once before. In fact, Sherry and Jerry, they co-wrote the book together, Jerry and Sherry, Jerry Marzinski. Also really has had a journey with schizophrenia and, had an incredible transformation and is doing amazing stuff now. So join me for Sherry. And then, of course, Double Trouble with Jesse on Wednesday. Not so double. We've got the first show happening, and then the Patreon and members live on Zoom. So that would be for all Patreon and YouTube members. So please just check the notice board. If you're a Patreon, check the Patreon. And if you're a YouTube member, check the members, because we will post a link for Zoom at 4:30 on Wednesday. And we're going to be decoding the Harry Potter 2 movie. So get your Harry Potter shoes on or Nimbus or whatever it is we fly around, and get your decoding glasses on. Jesse's going to be sharing some more information there. And then usually Dr. Dennis is on a Thursday, but last week, Thursday, I had family functions on. So Dr. Dennis will be on after JC on Wednesday. It's 7 o'clock Central African time. That's an hour later than what we usually are, but on Wednesday, not Thursday. On Thursday, in the field with Shanti. Join me for that on Solutions. I'm going to be talking about MK Ultra and MK Often. How do the two work together? How did the one progress? Because MK Ultra was the first really, I guess, hardcore recognized mind control that the CIA was using. MK Often is the sister, if you want to call it like that, or the offspring, which is where allegedly using occultic practices. And then I'm tying together how the two actually work together, not just what they are, but I'm tying together how they work. Yeah, tying it all together. So join me for that. Getting all tied up in my tongue. Yeah, a lot of tying up going on. Anyway, Thursday, of course, Taylor Northcutt again. Second interview with him. He's the very interesting guy as well that literally reads faces. So super interesting. Join us for that. And yeah, how does that work? And a very fascinating topic. So yeah, that'll be Thursday at 6 o'clock. Then, of course, Friday, Drop In with Shanti. We're going to be looking further into the sequel of the Cabal. So we're just watching an hour documentary there, commenting on it. So, yeah, just come hang out, drop in. I always say hang out with Shanti. I think it should be hang out, drop in, whatever. Bring your chai, whatever beverage of choice you might enjoy. Put your feet up and let's see what the docky has to say. And then, of course, in the evening, Leo Zagami. And then book club, Patreon book club with Jesse on Sunday. Join us for that. We are looking at very, very interesting topics at the moment. So yeah, that's super interesting with Jesse. And then of course, Sunday evening, J.R. Sweet again. J.R. is the Mormon monarch survivor who also did his first interview on ARA a couple of weeks back. Very interesting, amazing survivor stories again. So yeah, join me. Jam-packed week, that's for sure. I think the only day we're not going live or doing anything is on Saturday. But there's lots of interviews coming up. I've got a lot of survivors in the pipeline. Watch the schedule because there's some new testimonies that are coming out. And as you all know, we love to support our survivors here. So please join me for that. I have one request, guys, and this is more on a personal level, please. You all know my mom has dementia, and Bongi, who's her carer and who I love to fondly call my nanny, looks after us. Her entire house burnt down this morning. She has 2 young daughters and obviously a husband, and not really sure what happened, but it seemed to have come from the house next door. Somebody left something burning, and they've lost everything. Their kids' clothing, kids' books, kids' school stuff, everything. They've managed to save 1 or 2 items. Obviously, I'm doing what I can, running around trying to sort out and getting my community behind, just seeing that what we can get together. At the moment, they're just chopping planks together, at least to have something over their heads tonight. But if there's anyone who in any way could maybe just support in any way, I would so appreciate that. The tiniest amount helps right now. So if you're in a position to support my beautiful Bongi, I would really, really, really appreciate it. You can do so via buy me a coffee, buy us a coffee, or my PayPal link. Mona, if you could just maybe put that up, the PayPal link on the channel. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you so, so, so much. And without any further ado, the man of the moment. Oh, ta-da. Mr. Miles, you're on mute.
Oh, that's a joke. A friend of mine bought me a thing so that so many people are muted. He bought this mug. Well, mute. Why not use? I've done that before when I was on air on radio, wireless radio, and talked about UFOs a long time ago in Northern Ireland. I just moved my lips, and of course he's pushing the gain on the fader because he can't hear it. And then I do hello, blows her headphones off. That joke only works once. So I'm very sorry to hear what you just announced, sweetheart. And you are a sweetheart.
Yeah.
You're a bundle of laughs and fortitude and good. You are the example of what I'm talking about, right? Positive stuff. Adversity, or as we say in the big city of Belfast, adversity, and an adverse city, adversity.
Yeah.
But, that's why I sort of try to put a bit of a dry wit onto things. When did that happen, sweetheart?
Literally this morning. She came to work and I was sitting down. I was sitting down for my 11 o'clock meeting. And the next minute she comes charging in, and I was with Morna. And I said to Morna, I said, Bongi's house is burning down. I've got to take her home. And I got there and literally, the fire trucks were there and everything. Yeah, it's these guys next door, the Malawians, and, the Malawians are naughty. And it's a whole bunch of young men, young guys living together. And I think what happened was they didn't switch the stove off. And of course, we're living in wooden cabins type thing where Bongi is staying. So in a nanosecond, it was gone. And I just sat there and we just cried in the car together. She said to me, look, Shanti, look at my house. It's burning down. And I sat there with her watching her house burn down. It was horrible. So
you see, my My see, this brings on a light and my control panel thing, and see, these things aren't really coincidences, because my webmaster got a stroke. He didn't get a stroke. I think a stroke is a bleed, but he had on Friday night he was working at the on the Basis TV website, which was hacked. I don't know if I mentioned that last time, but the point is, he's working very hard, and a whole lot of good things have just come his way, because there's a new sort of organization here in. It's not really. It's going to be opening here in Glastonbury. I mean, promoting somebody else. I don't even have a proper name for it, but that was. He's got he. I don't want to say too many things because because a lot of it's confidential. But the point is that he got a wonderful stroke of luck, and everything was looking fantastic. And we had malicious software installed on our server, and for anybody else running servers and stuff like that in this kind of business, there's some kind of thing called shareware or share. I don't want to say the name fully, but it basically it means that your server, the contents of your server, get shared onto a cloud-based thing. And cloud-based things are extremely dangerous because anybody can see it anywhere. They can get it anywhere in the world, and they can then look in on what you're doing, and which is why you don't want to share anything on any of these clouds. For instance, broadcasters are now being, you don't need to have all that expensive equipment in your studio. We can do it for you, and we can host all the actual camera angles of a football game or an international sport. This is proprietary stuff. You know, you've got the cameras, you've got the rights to the football game or the Olympics or something, and they want to share it with their cloud server system, and they're going to help you. But then you don't have to spend all this money on big expensive trucks and studios. Right. And then they've got all your media. They hold it. They actually hold copyright and control over it. And if you want to put your show on the air, well, you just need to increase the licensing fees to access it. And if you don't pay the licensing fees, you don't have it. And the broadcasters don't realize this. They just think everything's whatever. So this was happening to basistv.com. And it turns out that if you don't do anything, it's passive acceptance to the contract. Wow. So if you ignore it or didn't pay attention, God forbid I actually pay attention to all those emails, it activates. Excuse me, I'm talking something really serious here.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're sorry. Oh my God, sorry. I don't know how can I deal with these people already? Okay. So the thing is that this is very serious. For God's sake, woman. Pull yourself. Anyway, so the point is, anybody running these servers or websites, just pay attention to any little things like that. So it's taken 2 to 3 weeks to try and sort this out. And Thomas was working on this on Friday, and he got a blood clot in the brain Friday night, and now he's in hospital and he's out of action. However, one of the whole points of what I'm saying is this is a complete disaster. It's really terrible, but his spirit, this is what I want to get across. His spirit and fighting spirit and tenacity is winning through within about the thing about these kind of strokes is it's the ability to get whatever you've lost back in operation as fast as possible. If you can do that, and a lot of this is down to your individual spirit and not crying in your tea or whatever. I don't know if people cry in a tea, do they? I didn't cry in my coffee.
I hope not.
On mute. Anyway, so he's actually punched back. So there he is. He's in hospital, and he's standing up, and he's lost the use of his right arm, but he's still there saying hello. He lost his speech, but his tenacity and power of positive thinking got him to slabber a few words. Hello, I'm here. And that's
right.
And that is what this whole thing's all about. These aforementioned expletives previously deleted and expressed some moments ago before we went on air. Should I say that? Yeah.
Yes.
I refer the right honourable lady to the expletives and insults we made previously beforehand.
Right, exactly.
So now
should not be repeated.
He's got him. He's now been moved to. This is working very fast. Today's Monday. This happened Friday night. The action happened Saturday. So his family are there with him in Denmark and things. And he's a fighter, and he's a really good guy. And but his fortitude is so important. And don't be afraid, and don't be fearful. And that's a big message. And by having that fortitude, because for what they've been doing, for instance, you mentioned a particular movie there, right? You mentioned a movie. You remember the things you read out beforehand. Do you remember these? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, the bad guy in the movie that you mentioned some moments ago, episode 2.
He who should not be named, that one.
Yeah, the Harry Potter thing.
Yeah, Voldemort. He who should not be named.
The really bad guy in that is actually Tim Refat, Total Intent Manifest, Tony Stark Refat. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, who's that?
Right. Okay. Spin back. Right. In the olden days, Queen Elizabeth I was walking about the place. She had 4 kids. You know that.
Right?
Yeah. In moments of passion, but being a smart woman, she decided not to become. But if she married, then her husband would be king, and she'd lose her king. So that's why she was called the Virgin Queen. All that, whatever. But the point is, we're going back quite a while, but it goes back to really where a lot of these things have started. There was a, as we're happening now, there was a nova, a visible nova in the sky at that time. Now, don't want to detract too many things. The point is that's where you have John D and 007. Okay. Now that basically meant that the intelligence service that Queen Elizabeth I was running was operating full throttle magic and that kind of stuff. Now, what's magic to us is simply an application of proper technology done under the correct laws. You don't muck around with this stuff. And so that is the correct laws that apply and you're applying these things. That is all. A lot of that's down to positive mental attitude and manifestation. TIM stands for Total Intent Manifest. Okay.
Right.
So from basically day one, the king or whoever's in charge has somebody operating in these complex thought-based realms which construct reality, right?
Yes.
I came up with this phrase a very long time ago, the RMS, Reality Management System.
Right.
Now, don't tell me how I came up with that, the RMS, right? Reality Management System. So what they're doing is they are operating a reality management system by scaring us to death, getting us all pissed off. And I'm guilty as I mean, I'm probably something that would be completely shocking to you. I can get pretty hacked off, and because I've got a Belfast accent, when I get hacked off, it sounds a lot more serious than it really is, but it is really serious. So the point is that the way that they control us and the way they do things with language and the way we construct our thoughts and the way they get us to do things for them, that sort of passive admission of permissions, like the website being hacked and taken down because we didn't deny it. And then there's a whole pile of complicated words you say and don't say. So, for instance, there's no such, I've just said it, there's no such thing as a negative with this stuff, right?
Right.
No word doesn't work. So when you get thousands and thousands of people or millions of people protesting, no war, you're actually getting them all to think war, right? The no doesn't work. Do you get that?
Totally. Absolutely.
And then also the term want is wrong because
yes,
I want peace. Well, what you get is the want of peace.
Yes.
You don't get peace. Do you understand? Yeah.
Totally, because it's kind of coming from the space of you speaking from a place of not having. So when we understand that we already exist within a space that we have it, if we choose to see it that way. Yeah. And then when we come from that place, it's called the law of assumption. Of course it's there. It's already there. So it's the feeling, and then it's exactly what. And this is why anything that is anti-drugs, show me one anti-drug campaign that has ever worked. Anti-war.
You're promoting the drug.
Exactly, because but let's think energy. Everything in the world is governed by energy. Everything is energy. So when we're talking about anti, we're creating a resistance, a fight. And that's exactly what we get. We get the opposing force. So instead of being anti something, change the perception to being pro whatever it is you want. So rather than anti-war, just say, I choose peace. I choose peace.
Yes.
And I choose health. Yes. When we keep talking about the illnesses in the body, we keep reaffirming them and they keep growing. But and this is why I always say, these are the principles that I've no doubt that Christ used when he was healing, because he never saw anyone as anything other than complete and whole and healed and healthy within God's light, right? And also whoever was receiving the healing had to believe that it was there, not like, oh, I don't believe it, let's see if it works, because in that case you completely shut it down. You trust that it's there, and you're aligning yourself with the energy that person, in this case Christ, was pretty much harboring, being the harbinger of. He was the harbinger of the Holy Spirit, basically, in action. So when we understand that and see that that's how he worked and that's how he healed, when he said, what I do, you can do so much better, that's what he's talking about. It's like being in alignment, focusing on what you want as opposed to what you don't want. Most of us, think about religions, any religion, always focusing on what you don't want, always focusing on the fears, always focusing on the negative, always seeing the darkness in everything. I see God in everything. Sorry, say that again, Miles.
No, it's the use of the term God is a vengeful God. It's a negative.
Never. God is not vengeful. That's not God. That's not God.
Yeah, that's
God is not vengeful. No ways is God vengeful. No ways. You see, that's where, and this is where I disagree with certain religious narratives, because that's not God. You see, that's definitely some other entity speaking and creating
Precisely.
fear. God says, I have given you free will, my children. Go out and experience yourselves, for that is how I grow, because you are me and I am you. We have to, it's like, how are we not created? If we are created in the image of our Creator, how do we not contain that which is our Creator within us? It's up to us to access that. And we do so in stages, like bite-sized chunks, right? We will move in a direction, and, you know, when you're ready, it's like, oh, now I get it. Plop, it's like the door opens, right? Or the flower blooms. It happens when we are at the right or relevant consciousness for things to unfold.
Precisely.
When we've taken the blockages out of the way.
I love you. I love your yellow chair as well. It's very good.
Queen bee, hum hum.
Queen bee, oh, wonderful. That's how we're being tricked. So that's what we have to do now. We're now dealing with since last week. We're going to have disclosure.
Yes.
And not too many people. I think the way that's being played, they got Obama to, because Obama, I don't like this focus on the American stuff all the time, but they're running the show. But we got President Obama saying we've got aliens are real, right? Now the point about Obama is that he's run by the same cabal that runs Trump. There's no difference, but they just do what they're told by whoever pays the bill. And if they don't pay the bill, everybody's, well, whatever. It's not, that's another thing altogether. But then that gave the opportunity for Trump. So you got a Democrat saying one thing about the aliens are real, and you've got Trump saying, let's release all the papers about this, because the Epstein stuff is right along. If you follow that path, that is going to bring us to the aliens and the human trafficking, and all the baby eating and all that sort of stuff. And what species eats their own, right? These are terrible topics. So
we don't.
There's a guy called, I keep on thinking Sean Atwood. He just sort of said it on his channel, and he's actually English. I could have the wrong Atwood. There's a couple of Atwoods, but the point is, he's worked out.
There's a Sean Atwood.
There is yeah. So he's worked out. Well, this is what I've just said. It's not no species eats its own. Okay, but therefore it must be aliens. So we're now getting ordinary people working out that, well, this is the alien thing. So there's no coincidence that with all the Epstein stuff, and again, there's so much stuff there. It's almost like Julian Assange with all the sort of WikiLeaks and stuff that he was releasing. There's so much of it. And that's actually one way of hiding a lot of information, is you give it so much to people, then everybody starts talking about this, and then a lot of things will be mentioned, and then they'll be mentioned, then there'll be something else, then people forget about the last thing that's been mentioned. So one of the best ways of keeping a secret is to tell everybody about it, because they forget. And then or print it in the front page of the newspapers, because we've told you. That's what they did with an experimental thing on children at school. What happened was they actually had newspaper articles about aliens landing at schools. Right? These were fake aliens, and they were fake. They were fake devices or eggs. It was an alien egg, and depending on the level of school there'd be a different complexity to the level of whatever the children were being exposed to. Of course, the children were then told, now don't tell mommy and daddy about this. This is not something you can tell mommy and daddy about. This is just for you. And then that would program the children for later on, probably, possibly, maybe in the young adult life, i.e. now, that when they tell people about aliens, they told us about this at school. But we know about this because this child didn't tell her parents. She told her grandmother. So she kept to form, didn't tell her parents. So the grandmother then tells us about it, which is why we know about it. And then we find out, well, it was put in all the newspapers, but nobody really remembers that. So this is a way that we can be subliminally programmed for accepting all this stuff. But that's why we got to, when we're put under all this stress, and the whole population has been stressed out with the COVID psycho thing. Again, they use black magic to push that on us. We've got the prime ministers all up there saying blah, 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 and they're operating black magic on us. So we then have a collectively traumatized public. And a lot of people don't understand why so-and-so dies and this thing dies, and then other people do, because we really know what the effect of this would be. So the point about that is that by accepting this programming, we play along with it. So the point is, don't accept the programming, and don't use the word don't. Deny this situation, and then we have control over what the narrative that they're trying to feed us is. So if we, there's some very young children have been traumatized with a lot of this stuff, but they're also ready with the answers.
Right.
Mother, but there was a wonderful incident in Glastonbury where the parents brought their kids to the conference, the wonderful Glastonbury Symposium. It's been going for decades, a great thing, formerly called the Crop Circle Symposium thing. But so this, I think she was probably maybe 5 or 6, and she was playing at breakfast, and she was very shy and things, and she wanted to ask me a question. So the mother said, yeah, go ahead, ask Miles a question. So she asked a question: where do we come from? She knew where we came from. We come from the stars, right? She just wanted to check if I knew. And that was a very smart kid. And they've grown up, that whole generation. I mean, we've had the star chat, the first several layers of children coming through. A lot of them took the heat, and we've had some very wonderful people who've been talking about star children and various colors of indigo and stuff like that. And now they're filtering their way into the population. I was talking to a young guy, I think he's one of his first jobs, just working at the local shop, which quite frankly has got awful stuff for sale in it. And that's how they feed different things into different parts of the population. I have to go to the other side of town to get milk, which is not homogenized and is natural milk. Occasionally I will do a thing called actually walk there and do a thing called exercise. Shocking. But the point is, that means that certain parts of the population are being exposed to certain kinds of foods and chemicals that you won't get in one other part of the population. And they're doing this everywhere. And this is, people think these 15-minute cities things are a new thing. It's really just a new name for how they kept a population from being mobile. Only special people will be able to get out on whatever it is. And this is one way we fight them back on this. We double con the corners. Okay? So we do not respond with fear. We respond with a double think of what they're doing with us. Okay? Right. And that's actually where a lot of phrases within population groups are, and for instance, Cockney slang is one example where you spoke in a way which was compliant. Again, this is a more modern term. So you were compliant with the oppressor. A lot of populations who have been under extreme pressure from dictatorships and things like that. For instance, I worked with some people from Poland who were being trained at the BBC some years ago. Poland had this is after the communist regime, Soviet thing fell and all that. So it was then the way that he spoke and the way of his mannerisms was never showed any emotion, always be obedient, always be compliant, and always say yes, depending on when you need to say no. But that kind of thing is a way of surviving. But what we're dealing with here is to outwit these oppressors, and that's beginning to work because the whole political class is beginning to fragment. That means that the illusion of their control is falling apart. So by outwitting themselves and doing what you were saying is the way we fight back. Do not be afraid. There was another case. Again, this is a fairly. His mother came, and this his guardian and his mother came, and this child had experienced some horrendous treatment at behalf of certain individuals in certain situations, which I won't go into, but it involves the broadcasters. Broadcasters have got a lot to answer for. Very bad, very, very bad. But the key to it was, he says, don't be afraid. That was his message. The wisdom of that, despite all the trauma that child had gone through and how he was able to articulate and describe the whole thing, he was able to get through this by not being afraid. Do not have fear. That's what he said.
Exactly. It's like, it's what we say, faith over fear. And I think that's such an important, I have this acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real. And that's what I've been from the beginning when I started teaching my workshops. That's the acronym that I've used: false evidence appearing real. So really, fear is your teacher. When we choose to see fear as our teacher and not something that we should be cowering away from, it shifts the dynamic completely. It shifts that of feeling, run, hide, the monsters or whatever, the zombies are coming. The minute we have that fear, it's natural then, if you just look at how energy patterning works, that we're going to collapse into whatever it is. But the minute we understand, right, fear is a good thing. I mean, fear can be very healthy. Your fear will kick your instinct in. If there's danger I'm sure around the world, I know the cops around here, when they're training, they are highly trained in instinctive, heightening their intuitive and instinctive abilities as well, to sort of sense danger around you. So that will be a good thing, So I think as long as fear itself is not bad, right?
Yeah.
But it's how we respond to the fear. Because fear is either there to warn you in a good way, or
if you put your hand into the flames, fear and pain are there to tell you to remove the hand from the flames, because the hand in the flames are bad, not good.
Yeah.
So fear is telling you, and pain telling you, take your hand out of the flames.
Exactly.
Does that work? Yeah.
Yeah, it does, because obviously the pain would then create the fear afterwards of putting it back in there, like a child. I mean, once they burn their hand on the stove, they're going to try and want to touch that stove until they burn their hand. And then that, boom, but also then that would create the instinct. So fear is not always bad. It's very instinctive. And again, that's up to us to discern. When is fear showing us? Is this my intuition? Because when you're in, it's more actually, it's not fear. Actually, I'm gonna backtrack on what I said. When you're aligned and in coherence, right? Your intuition will tell you danger is around. Your intuition is, in my opinion, God's voice. And when you are aligned, that's how you fully know what to do. It's like you trust your intuition completely and you act on that. But you can't have intuition aligned and spot on when your head and your heart is full of fear, because the fear is going to knock you off center every time. So you've got to learn how to face those fears and dissolve them, because every time we face something and you name your fear, you have to name your fear. If I'm feeling ashamed because I did something which I cannot acknowledge to the world, let me name it to myself. I have to name it, because the minute you name it, it releases the shame or the humiliation. Shame is something that I inflict upon myself usually, like getting drunk and dancing on the tables in my underwear, for example. That's an act that I might feel very embarrassed about the next morning.
Examples of that to show me, just in case I didn't quite understand what you said, just purely from a learning experience.
Thank God in the 80s there was no such thing as cell phone cameras. I never did that. I did dance on tables.
People like that.
But humiliation then is usually something that someone else has inflicted upon you, like your father beating you in front of your friends, or someone, whatever it might be. So we've got to, part of understanding and discerning ourselves and doing the shadow work is facing these parts of ourselves. And as we face them, just like we're shining light on the underbelly of the cabal, we also have to shine light on the underbelly of our nature. And that's not necessarily always bad. That is really just the parts of ourselves we don't know, or we haven't gotten to know, or we don't like or don't want to know, right? But these are the things that we have to transform and bring back into alignment and in coherence before we as human beings are going to literally walk out of this matrix. It's up to us. It's all energy. It's all energy. All of it.
Yes.
That's it.
And one of the things to do that that they want us to do, or they get us to dig our own graves. They get us to do it for them. It's like when they put somebody on a mouse on a wheel. The mouse is doing all the work. They're off having a good time and doing whatever it is. Meanwhile, the mouse is going around on this wheel, and they get you to do that. The way to do that is to not get on the wheel, but to get them to put more energy in, and you go and have a nice time. So you invert that situation so that they end up having to do this more and more times, and then they get tired of it. Did that work?
Exactly. Totally.
And I had to work that out myself. We have a phrase in Belfast called "get some therapy," and I have another phrase say, "Thank God I'm not religious." What's he saying?
Get some therapy. I love it. Or somebody's therapist knows all about you.
But it's. I think there's another phrase called owning your fear. Owning it. It's understanding it and why. And then you don't have the fear anymore. You've understood. You've learned from experiencing that. And
Absolutely.
then you won't be afraid, and you will be able to deal with that situation with a logical and coherent mind. Because when you're afraid, you pull everything in. and that's not the way to do it.
Absolutely. Exactly. Exactly. And
I
that's the
actually
thing. And we
think
know
that's why boxing is a good sport. And a lot of people say, "Oh, women shouldn't do boxing," but they've got a better body mass ratio to do it. But the thing is, it's knowing that, getting away from the fear of being hit and knowing how to outmaneuver your attacker. I'm not really into boxing, but I could see how that, and then that can get out of control because you have mismatch. Would you believe there might be some kind of thing in sports which would be inappropriate and unbalanced, and maybe money would be exchanged in a betting shop in Thailand somewhere, but or Far East. So it's learning how to get through that, which is how you can then face your enemy down. And then, because you are not fearful, that enemy might have to think again about doing what it's doing. Face them down.
Exactly.
And then collectively face them down. And then a lot of these, we had somebody who delivered a thing about psychopathic control freaks at the conference a couple of years ago. And psychopaths are they crave control, but the other thing is that they crave control is they either crave the fear that they have. They get a hit out of the fear that they have because they're able to control, and they also get the power surge of knowing that what they've got is control and power. But what was very very well illustrated by this person dealing with this, on how they would isolate and get rid of anybody else who'd be a threat to the group, so that everybody would then be more compliant. But the point about the whole talk was that she was a control freak. She was a psychopath. She described her own personality absolutely perfectly, and a lot of people didn't see the penny drop on this, but what she had done within her group and the way that she organized it was be that psychopath.
It's classic projection, isn't it? It's classic projection.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also that the UFO Academy, one of the audience, or one of the friends of the UFO Academy, was somebody who worked out that in order to prevent, for the safety of the village, they would somehow know that a particular child was going to be born as a psychopath. And then what they did was they terminated the pregnancy. Therefore, there would be no psychopaths which would then get born, take control, and ultimately be a threat to the greater society of that group.
How do they know that? How would they know when it's
that? But that was, I think it was the shaman or somebody would know how that happened.
Right. So to be a shaman, I've got an insect crawling up my mug. Excuse me, can you see it? Won't leave my mug. Excuse me.
Excuse me, but I've just got an ordinary glass here. The Chantel has just shown something bigger than my glass, so I'm feeling hurt, and her glass is much more sophisticated than my glass. I've just got an ordinary glass with lemons in it. God knows what she's got in that.
It's a lizard mug.
It's what? It's what's in there?
Tea. That's actually herbal tea, or the Americans say herbal tea. But the make, it's like
H's, because
I guess it's the same as a Stanley mug or similar, but this one's lizard. So it's a
lizard.
So that's what lizard. Yes.
Explain the lizard. What do you mean by it's a lizard?
That's a mag. It's made by a company called Lizard.
It's just, I mean, I didn't see where the teeth were and the long tail. I don't know. But the point about this is that fear. I mean, I don't want to be quoting scripture here. God help us if Miles starts quoting scripture. This is when you start running for the hills. Though that you go through the valley of death, fear no evil. That had a big influence on me. I actually read that out of school when I was. I did go to school. Okay, a wee lad about this size, and we call that a wee lad. I don't know why I switched back into Belfastese occasionally, but it's good fun anyway. But that was something which allowed you to get confident to do public speaking. And that's how I then ended up in the broadcasting side of things.
That's amazing.
Radio,
actually. Yeah.
But that's the whole point about what's happening now, insofar as you see, that fire thing, I feel, is not a coincidence. Another friend of mine, just at the start of last week, they had this is speak it out. Their home was under attack, and these individuals had decided to throw big fireworks at her windows earlier last week, and she took that as a threat to her life. We then have other people having situations where something has happened to affect their personal safety. And again, I don't want to mention too many things, because it might. So the point is, this, to my estimate, or to my mind, I'm concluding that they're giving this information out to the public. People are, particularly the investigators, people like yourself and others and myself, we're looking at these problems and looking at them and looking for solutions or looking for patterns to see and more understand what's happening. They don't want us in the game if we can work out what they're releasing. Excuse me. If they're releasing stuff that, it's a bit like releasing a lot of telephone numbers or whatever it is. Maybe there's a couple of telephone numbers in there which is actually very important, and you don't want, and in order to mask the importance of those telephone numbers, they cover it up. And so you get a lot of other numbers that, well, by the time you go through these other numbers and you realize they're just ordinary numbers, but there's a key number in there they don't want you to find. So the way to mask that is to swamp it, to dissolve it with so much data. So the people who are sifting, and this is a general pattern that I picked up on this, is that informed people who've been researching and doing a lot of things are under attack.
Yeah.
Because when we are able to observe and see what's going on and make sense of a few things and start building up our own patterns and seeing what they're really finding out about, and if we're not able to do that, or otherwise decommissioned, or our understanding is hampered because we are under attack at home, or, I mean, this has happened with my immediate family, and we were able to do a sort of a thing to remedy that situation, but it meant that attacks on me were being diverted to my immediate family friends.
Right.
So then you had to diffuse it's literally just so therefore they were using, or they are using, some form of high level thought control technology on us. So you've got somebody in your family just before this was happening, and they have a fire. The same thing happened with another individual. It's you might be protected, but our immediate our immediate close friends or whatever it is, they take the hit. But that's there was a particular situation. I hate having a paraphrase around things because you don't want to mention specifics and names, where we didn't get the target, but we got one of them anyway. So that's sort of like being hit on the flanks. You don't get hit, but people in your immediate vicinity.
Around you. Sure.
So They don't know what's happened, but they still take the hit. But the way that this can work against them is that you have protection. And see, this is why when people want to put a curse on somebody, if they issue the curse straight to that person, then you can. It's a one-track path back to the origins of who initiated the attack. So what they do is they get shamans or they get other intermediates who are shielded themselves, so they can do the hit. They're not going to get hit, and the person who initiated isn't going to get the hit because the hit is going back to the first link. So what we have to do is we have to construct a protection mechanism which goes back to the source of the attack. And I think Beverly has illustrated that. I think she's sunning herself and having a good time in Florida or somewhere. God forbid she's not in Britain and suffering. Another friend of mine is going to Mexico tomorrow or whatever it is, to have a good time or whatever. Not that I'm jealous. I wouldn't be jealous. I wouldn't say things like that. I just don't do that. But it's a way, and again, this is in the physics. I wasn't going to illustrate any books, but there's a very good book by Tom Bearden, Energy from the Vacuum. Okay. And it's a very thick book. I could get up and get the book, but I've actually repaired it. In the physics, it's called. So, for instance, if you attack somebody with an energy weapon or just simply a radar pulse, okay. So if you have a radar pulse and it pings you, and you don't know where this is coming from, this process can be used to destroy the origins of the radar pulse. Right? You don't know where the radar pulse is. It's somewhere right there, right? It has found you. So you can then do a thing called send a pulse back or an energy packet back, which follows the phase conjugate. Are you paying attention at home, people? The phase conjugate of the time reversed wave. Okay? Now, the whole point of that is the wave comes to you going up and down, right? This I'm going to use whiteboard here. Kim Guggen's much better at this than I am, but don't mention people like that. Okay, right. So be quiet. So the point is this wave has come from here to you here and blown you up or taken out half your aircraft or whatever's doing. Now, the phase conjugate is that you follow the energy wave where the wave came from.
Exactly. The pathway.
Yeah. So the conjugate, you are in phase with the pathway of the incoming attack wave, right? And because the time is this way, so it's the time reversed phase conjugate of the wave back. Right? Okay. Exactly. So that's where the origins of the wave came from. And that's how that's why the Chernobyl nuclear power station blew up. A bunch of scientists in Los Angeles, they used the Los Angeles underground water system, which is a grid, right? The way that it's by and large a grid. Okay, so what they did was they used the wet underground system as a matrix, and what they did was they sent a signal using the phase conjugate wave principle back to where this weapon was causing problems in the United States, right? And the transmission system that was dealing with this was in southern Russia, Chernobyl. right? Or wherever the hell Chernobyl is, right? I think it's just north of Austria, whatever it is. But and this has been on a TV show called Abandoned Engineering. I like watching these things. Now, again, this is how the media actually tells you what's going on, but they're never going to tell you in plain sight. But they use plain sight to illustrate it. So there is an enormous antenna system in Chernobyl, and it's got huge conductors. It's got huge conductors for lightning, for electricity, very high voltage electricity. Now, the point about a lot of the energy systems is it's just energy, it's not current. So it's a lot of big conductors which radiate a system of energy, right? This is what we call scalar energetics, right? Okay. Now, the point is that the power station feeding that antenna, which was attacking the United States with scalar energetic waveforms in what's called scalar energetics, right? That was causing a lot of problems in the United States, changing the weather system, and that was going to affect a whole lot of things. So the point is, these scientists, this team, operated from used a reverse antenna system, i.e., the grid structure of Los Angeles, and they sent a jamming signal back to wherever that was coming from, and it was coming from the antenna in Chernobyl. The power for that antenna was coming from the Chernobyl nuclear power station, which then overheated. One of the things about any kind of antenna system, you have to have what's called a standing wave ratio, SWR, which is at a certain ratio, which means all the energy that your amplifier is producing is leaving the antenna. If you've got a very bad standing wave ratio, the energy is being generated by the transmitter, but it's not leaving it, it's coming back. So your transmitter will overheat and could blow up. That's exactly what happened with Chernobyl.
Wow.
What was happening was that the energy leaving this system on the time reverse on this wave, right? That was coming back to it, because these guys were using this principle of effectively reflecting the wave back the path it came from.
Right.
And then the reactor was pumping all this power, and suddenly it's not able to get rid of the energy. And then what happens? It gets rid of it in heat. And that's when they had a fire in the reactor, and this whole thing went belly up.
Wow.
Now, since then, they've not used that technology because they've worked out how to counteract it. So the nuclear power station was thing. A lot of people died. A lot of people got hit. And there's a number of other interesting things happening in Chernobyl about how nature dealt with all this. But that's how you hit a source of an attack. So,
well, I'm interested. I'm interested. Sorry to chime in here. You've just said something very interesting to me, which was on my mind. So I'm going to ask you, when you said how nature has dealt with that attack. So it's been a number of years now, like 3 decades since that happened, something like that. How has nature responded in the last 3 decades to that Chernobyl?
Well, you see, this is one of the big frauds about nuclear weapons. And that's why we never really used them. There's a whole pile of other reasons why the nukes don't really work, and that's how the nukes were neutralized at Rendlesham Forest, and the Russian strategic nuclear weapons were neutralized in their silos. Nature has been dealing with all these energies forever, right? We have solar flares. The old things blast off and whatever. But nature creates a balance which neutralizes the effects of the radiation. So, for instance, the nucleotides, the nuclear elements in the soil, plants took them out of the soil, fed it through the plant system, and the radiation was then expressed and built up with the flowers.
No way.
Flowers were then getting the radioactive things, and it was being disseminated and neutralized. Right?
Wow.
So then when animals take things, I mean, one of the things which affects us due to radiation is that it's not the actual direct effect on the living tissue. It feeds back into where we create blood cells in the bone marrow. Right. Which is why I think they get you to take iodine pills.
Yeah.
So when we had a radiation leak problem here, the first thing you do is take iodine pills. Now, the reason what the iodine pill does is that the radioactive particles will go and get stuck to the iodine, which you then pass out of your system. That's how the flowers and the plants were effectively getting rid of the dangerous material, and it was put into the flowers, and then it was able to disseminate. And I don't have the full answer here, but that's how it was taken out of the soil, and thereby the next generation of plants which come along, they continue that process, and then it slowly goes away, which is why a lot of things in Chernobyl and things are why people can walk there and take pictures of the whole thing, but they haven't got the people back.
Wow.
But that's how
incredible.
the nature.
I love that.
Yes. Sorry?
I love that. You know, when you talk about nature and how it's disseminated, and makes perfect sense. Because, nature
is, we are living on a planet which has been spinning through space, and volcanoes blowing up and meteors hitting us and all sorts of solar flares and God knows what else going on. And it's learned how to protect itself. And the whole solar system is talking and communicating with each other. There's like a music. There's like one of the things when Professor Valentina Zarkova was explaining how she's Northumbria University, and she worked out her team worked out they're up to like something like 9 different cycles of the solar system. So, for instance, the first fallacy is: do we orbit the sun? Question, Chantel. You at the back.
No,
with the yellow seat.
I'm asking you.
I've asked this woman a question, and she's sitting there.
Is this a trick question?
It's not a trick question. It's a straight question with a straight answer.
So why are you asking me? What do you mean by that? Why are you asking me that?
An answer, and then I'm going to say something, which is, oh God, this is really difficult. Answer the question. God Almighty.
You know what the bloody question was anymore?
All students where you are this disruptive in the class. Right, well,
in the back of the class.
See me after school, and I've got some lines for you to write. God Almighty. The answer to that question is no. We do not orbit round the sun. The sun. No. We orbit around the center of the solar system, which the sun also moves around in its particular way of orbiting. And like a lot of these things, it's complicated, and that induces a number of cycles into the planetary system, which means every 2,500 years, approximately, we get warmer by 3 degrees. And it's that 3-degree rise in temperature that these sons of bitches accuse. I don't know why sons of bitches is a bad thing. Bitches, anyway. That's where they're using this 3 degrees things to push the fake carbon dioxide thing. And the reason why they're doing the
Yes.
carbon dioxide thing is because these creatures are not of organic life, and that's why they're trying to destroy all organic life here, because they want to take this planet
Yes.
and run it without any need for organic life. Okay?
Yeah.
So where are we with this? Ooh, I've just got a tone in my ear. Ooh, quite loud.
What's happening?
Well, I think I hit something there, which is what they're trying to do. The enemy that we're dealing with is not of organic life, and that's an energy field of some kind of enemy which sucks the living life force out of all things in wherever it goes. As the Beatles illustrated in the movie Yellow Submarine, the blue meanies. Did you see Yellow Submarine?
Can't remember.
Here's me using examples that nobody's seen. There was in the 1960s, there was a very popular musical band called the Beatles. And they sold a lot of records, and they also made some films, one of which was a cartoon film called Yellow Submarine. When you have to explain an analogy, we're falling asleep here, right?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
He's with me, God Almighty.
But okay? So but what was? I mean, obviously that was symbolism, right?
Yes.
So tell us about the symbolism of the Yellow Submarine.
Well, the Yellow Submarine made everybody blue, and that meant they were all sad and miserable, and that is something which prevents creativity and the ability to invent, create, and provide harmony. This is where again, you've mentioned it's all energies, harmonic energies. If somebody's sort of I've got it. Anyway, moving on. So because they are wanting to parasite, they are parasiting off the creative people within society. That's why a lot of schools now do not like children who come up with creative thoughts. So, for instance, this mother had to go to see the headmaster at the school and say, your daughter's a real problem. Your daughter's going to go nowhere in society. And what her crime was, you were all told to paint this picture of a tree, right? So they painted the picture of the tree, and all the compliant children painted the tree exactly as shown on where they wanted to paint it. Her daughter put a flower on the tree because she wanted her tree to have nice flowers. This was completely unacceptable because the daughter had not shown compliance. The daughter had shown independent thinking and creativity, which is absolutely unheard of with these kinds of schools, of so many of them. So that's why her mother was taken, and this child was chastised, you terrible person. So this is where they want obedient, compliant, slave children, not creative ones. And that's one of the systems that what we need to encourage. We need to encourage dynamic, creative thought, not just rigid compliance. That way you can put different ideas, and that's the way that successful businesses will work. One of the first things I saw at Sky Television, which was a big alarm bell, was we had a lot of really creative people which started Sky way back in 1990. It was a wonderful time. It was a great creative climate, and you had some of the VT supervisors. Some of them wore really sort of crazy punk hairstyles and really creative, expressing individuality and creativity. And then there were others in the sound thing. The whole point about broadcasting is that you have to create wonderful things to go on the air, which means that the audience watches you because you are producing creative, entertaining, thoughtful, whatever programming. So what had happened was that Sky had been attacked by a source of energy, blue meanies, for want of a better term, which took all the bright colors out of life and made everything blue. Right? Monochrome blue control. Now, the term blue, Daniel List has done an awful lot of work on this, the dark journalist, about the externography and about why the things involving the alien thing are called blue. Project Blue Book, Blue Beam, that sort of thing. The color blue. So then that's a signature that the film, I'm thinking this out loud, that's a signature that the Beatle film Yellow Submarine, we've got talking to somebody here with a yellow seat here. And so
there you go.
There it is, yeah. So that indicates that the Yellow Submarine and the Beatles were causing this wonderful chaos and entertainment of stuff. And then the Blue Meanies were fought back.
Wow, all right.
And they all vanished. And then when the Blue Meanies vanished, flowers and things grew and everything was really wonderful. Right. Really wonderful time.
Wow.
So sorry. The point about them using blue meanies infers, in my conclusions, that the Yellow Submarine and the Beatles were showing a red flag. Oh God, don't use colors. About some kind of ET problem. So there was an ET invading source which had made everybody miserable. That's, I think, the message of the film Yellow Submarine. And I'm stating this right now on the 23rd of Monday of February, that's really what the Beatles were getting across on that.
Wow.
And remember, John Lennon was not shot by some crazy guy. He was shot point blank by a professional hitman. Hit four bullets, bang, 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 dead. And just
why was he? What was the reason for that? I mean, there's a lot of speculation, but you definitely...
The same thing happens with a lot of these murdered pop stars. The same thing happened with Michael Jackson. When they go off script, so for instance, John Lennon had, the Beatles were over, he was living in New York, he was living his life. What was happening was he was beginning to reinvent himself. He was going off script. He was producing new music. He had #1 records. Right? Bang, bang, you're dead. They killed him.
Right.
With extreme prejudice. 4 bullets in the back.
Was Yoko, his wife, involved? Was she his handler? What's your take on that?
I think that she was effectively a handler. But there was very good film made about those last days of John Lennon. It was beginning to get way out of control in terms of drinking and actual success of the music. So that was, they brought Phil Spector in. That didn't work because he was not producing anything. So he managed to beat that. So they tried to stop him from being creative by wrecking his recording sessions. And then they got rid of that. And then, interestingly, the industry, see, this is BBC, deeply involved here. The BBC, for the TV show, The Old Grey Whistle Test, they got a film made. And this shows the complicity of this. The BBC got a film crew. They got a film, an interview with John Lennon by one of the, a guy called, I think, Andy Peoples of Radio 1. And they got a film. That this is very rare to happen like this. They got a film. The film was hand delivered from that actual recording by plane to the BBC and taken straight from the car and put into the telecine machine and broadcast without approval of the director general or anybody else involved with the BBC. And that went on air in the old grey whistle test. And I think within 24 hours, John Lennon was dead.
Wow.
That was his last unedited,
wow.
Agreed at high level BBC Two, and I think after that, not too sure. I think that was. I mean that was the way that happened. Oh, the old grey whistle test, the last interview with John Lennon and Andy Peebles. So you would need to ask questions. That why did the BBC have a crew there to get that stuff? Because it was going to be his sort of last thing. That's how close these things work.
Yeah, it's all synchronized.
But the key was when you sign your contract or with the devil, so to speak, and the devil has a certain job to do. You know, don't give the guy a hard time because he's got to deal with all those bad people. He's got something to do. But the thing about it is that that's an example of when a creative artist is being creative and coming up with his own inner spiritual creativity. You can't have that. You're not being compliant. And so they shot him.
What about the rest of the Beatles? We hear a lot about Paul McCartney, who's apparently not the same guy.
Paul McCartney, there's a guy here, a guy called he's DJ. Paul McCartney ended up being run over or having some kind of an accident, right? But in the film, in the Magical Mystery Tour, and with the album, the Magical Mystery Tour thing, you've got the Beatles, and a lot of people have gone batshit on this. You've got Paul McCartney with his back turned. Now, but in the music, now there's an awful lot of stuff written about this, so I'm paraphrasing. In the music on the album, Billy Shields, they introduce Billy Shields. And here we have Billy Shields. Billy Shields was a musician who was working in the studios, who looked very like Paul McCartney. And he was introduced on the record as the replacement to Paul McCartney. Now, there are very, very important differences with the nose, with the shape of the nose. You can have a lot of people. If you look at, there's a really great guy in the States called Typical Skeptic, I think it's called. He's called, I forget his actual name, but the way he looks very like Max Spears. So if you have somebody, well, he's a brilliant guy. He's doing very well. He's been banned on YouTube a couple of times, which means he's doing brilliant. But the point is, when you got a lookalike and he's in the same studio, you can then push that, have a few little bits of this or that, touch up a few photographs, and away you go. And then they introduce, you see, this is the difference between a stage act, okay, called the Beatles, performing on the stage, and real people, right? So, for instance, so they replaced the act. But the point about Paul McCartney is he was really one of the key members. If you look at the way when the Beatles first went to the States, if you look at the way Paul McCartney, the eye movement and how the others are controlling and why they ended up going down to Florida and all that sort of stuff, there's an awful lot of stuff there and how they were performing on that when they went to the States. Mafia was involved in all that. Paul McCartney was really heavy-duty eye movement directing. He was very, very smart. The Paul McCartney that they replaced him with, i.e. Billy Shields, He didn't have the singing. That's why when they went the Wings tour and all that, he didn't really have the singing. But the big whistleblower on this is when when Wings went to Japan, they didn't let Paul McCartney in because his fingerprints didn't match. So there's a whole ballyhoo about that.
Where's the original? Where's the original Paul McCartney?
So in terms of controlling populations and terms of how we were all manipulated in that, and how those within the manipulation process were bumped off. But then you have a situation where when a character in a band has to be played by somebody else, that's the way that show business works.
But where's the real Paul gone? Where did he go?
Well, apparently he died in a car accident. But it's I wish I could remember this guy. He's I think he's published 4 books, I think, called Musical Truth. And he's an English DJ guy. And I just can't quite remember his name. Musical Truth.
Right.
The very
okay.
He's seen a lot of stuff, but and he's very right. He's very not very right, but he's got at a certain level, he's really picked up the biscuit on this, and he's illustrated how so many of our great heroes in the music industry are actually, all part of those eyes wide shut parties, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think probably. I think it's understood that if you win any type of major award, you've made.
Yeah,
the
there's
deal.
somebody just listed there. I see in the chat. This was an American. Now, I ended up publicizing that picture. There's
Which
a picture of the Beatles, and it was an American version of a Beatles album, and they were photographed holding a lot of headless babies with blood around them.
Okay, wrong one. Sorry.
It's now the point about that is, I was walking around a village in this is a posed picture with the Beatles in white coats with baby dolls.
Yes, I've seen that.
And they were covered in blood and bits of meat and stuff hanging off them. Baby dolls and body parts. What's that all about? That was an American only limited. It was on a calendar. That picture was on a calendar of album covers which only had 1,000 editions printed of that version of the album cover. And I saw this in a shop 15 years, probably 12 years ago. So, and I took a picture of it, and it's on one of my presentations, and I've got it somewhere. And it was a set of songs which was released, because when they put albums out in different markets, they'll have a different arrangement of songs to make that particular album sell in that market. And that had the babies on it. Now, that was a photograph of the Beatles involving break the heads off and eat them like monkeys.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, now that was a pub. This is what you're dealing with. This is what you're dealing with. So that was a posed album. Of course, that was them in plain sight having a laugh, and that was only in the United States.
That's wild.
Now I know Simon Parks borrowed that slide off me. I actually sent him a better version of it when he was giving presentations on this. But that should tell you something about the whole music industry. And Tim Refat does a huge expose of modern top musical people. That's a different thing. The Illuminati and eyes wide shut things, and how they manipulated the consciousness of the people and all that sort of stuff.
Right. I have, and I know we're running out of time. Yeah, I probably have run out of time, but hey, I have a further question I'd like to pose to you, or maybe just something we can chat about. You used to
You've got
work
a yellow
with David
chair. I've got a
Icke.
yellow Geiger counter. Okay.
You see, you got the memo. I love it. You got the memo, Miles. You got the memo.
Memo. Yeah, and that's 12 microsilvers. That went
Buzz.
into alarm. This went into alarm mode last week because we got hit with radiation. So I just keep this beeping away. See?
Wow, that's wild. Okay, tell us about you worked with David Icke, actually. Tell us about David Icke.
I didn't work with the man.
Well, you were working at the BBC.
So I was working at the BBC. I did 5 years at the BBC. What
So
I had
he was
the great honor with is to work at the People's Voice, which was a voluntary donation of time, and a lot of people had so much the People's Voice TPV, and I can't remember the guy who actually ran it. Sean something or other. I don't get the second name correct, but I don't want to mispronounce it. I keep on. It's Taba something or other. That was a massive hope that people had. They did a. The one thing about David Icke is that he's able to hold an audience and stand on stage and perform for long periods of time. He has a really excellent team of people working with them. So I didn't. The point about it is that I went down there and on the Wembley Point studios. That was an example of going online when the infrastructure to provide a service online to people outside the cities just wasn't there. So going online was only going to work really in the cities, and the British telephone infrastructure is pretty bad on that, but that's a technical thing. And I was assisting in producing the health show with a lovely lady called Elizabeth Sanindi, I think. Yes, and she was one of the team, and we did that, and I edited those shows back in my studio, my edit suite down in Wiltshire, which I stayed in the B&B for a year. I converted a B&B into an edit suite and a studio, and interviewed people like Max Spears and a whole pile of other people, Marie Kayali and a whole pile of other people down there. But the bottom line is, and you've asked the question, David Icke would not allow me to see his eyes. He instantly rotated so that I would not see his eyes. And I think we'll leave it at that. There are other things I could say in terms of how information is managed in this particular environment. And David Icke is an information management mouthpiece.
Okay. An information management mouthpiece. That sounds a bit like a gatekeeper in my language. Is that the same thing?
We might say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
No, of course you can't. I'll just say it like it is.
The way that the BBC, the way that the public media is used, is they will have people who have been, and I'm painting myself on this because I've done a number of documentaries, and I've been on the telly since I was at fifth form. So I must be in some kind of situation to that's a long time ago. School tie, okay, fifth form, uniform, okay. Just think of that with hair, and
you were like 9. I think you would have been like 9. Then fifth form is for.
No, I wasn't 9. I was not 9. I was fifth form is 16. It's your last. You leave at 18. So,
Okay, all right.
so I was growing up. I knew which end of a woman to look at by then, anyway. Anyway, the point is, Jesus, how crude, how crude. The point is
Miles.
that you put people on stage, and this is one of the big things that the CIA have completely screwed up on with their this thing that they've been doing. They have a show. It doesn't work. Have a show. She had a show, and you have a show. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And if it does work, you make more of it. If it doesn't work, you don't make more of it. They've had a show that doesn't work, and they keep making more of it. That breaks the laws of show business. And if they want to do that, that's up to them. They've got the budget for that. The point is that David Icke has been one of these public figures who's been very, very successful in educating the people on a lot of subjects for the so-called domestic market in the UK and across the world. And he's been vilified and worked very, very hard with his team to get that stuff across. And that's been very influential in waking an awful lot of people up and getting on with things. But I think that's a lot of people have done a lot of hard work, and without that influence, it wouldn't have been possible. But as I've said, I was on TV in fifth form, and I was able to get a number of documentaries produced and made at Sky, which were extremely successful and have been resold across the world and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't going to happen to the BBC. And so that's what I'm doing right to my days when your hair turns different color. He said, I've avoided saying certain things, but I don't think it's fruitful. The People's Voice had great hopes. There's a lot of money spent there. A lot of people worked very, very hard. A lot of volunteers worked, and it was a tremendous new hope because there were two things happened before the People's Voice went on the air. Number one, there were three shows, there were three channels on Sky analog. Two were piggybacking on the back end of a Russian transponder. There was, I think, at the time, RT was on air on Sky, and they had extra space. The way that the transponders work, you have the primary channel with all the high bitrate stuff, and then there's other piggyback channels which can get onto that, which means the bill is paid by the primary channel, which means the other channels would be also there. So we had controversial TV, which was a brilliant thing, and that was called Channel 200 because people in Sky liked it, and we gave it a good round number. And that was an opportunity where a lot of people could get shows on. Even a lot of my content was on air on that. And then there was another one which I just can't remember, but there were two channels where Richard D. Hall, he got a lot of his material out on. Richard D. Hall has been taking a big hit on this country. He was set up, BBC involved with that. That involved court cases, and whatever has happened with that has happened. But just before the People's Voice was about to come on air, those channels came off air, which means there's coordinated. There's a coordinated. Those channels which got a lot of information out independently were taken down. So the way was open for the TPV to be the only source of information which was going to be made available, but it was not on air. It was online, and it was online at a time when the bit rate on the public network was bloody useless. I think it lasted about 6 months. I think it came on late 2013, I think. And I think it was off the air by early 2014. And that was an awful lot of money and a lot of hope went into that. When you have a situation where the people doing stuff have to do it themselves for nothing as donors, and then they're being produced by people brought in, given hotel rooms and taxis, they would be told what to do. That's a big Animal Farm signal there. So I'm saying that de facto, the TPV was an Animal Farm situation. And the key members of the controlling structure of that are still around today, producing disinformation and getting away with it on a big scale. And that's my statement on that. Chantel.
We're on mute. Well, we've had a nice long show with you tonight, so I will thank you.
I thought this was only going to be a last half an hour.
Well, exactly.
See, is this argument the full half hour or just 10 minutes? Monty Python joke.
You see. Wow, very, very interesting, and I appreciate you giving us that intel. And look, my opinion personally, just to speak about David Icke, of course, there's a lot of people that are speculating, as you say, a lot of things, and it's so true what you say, whether he's a gatekeeper or not, it's actually irrelevant. The fact is he's given a lot of information. He's spoken about a lot of things that are relevant. And you don't have to follow him like he's a cult leader or the Pied Piper. But what you can do is take the information. And, this is what I see in this whole disclosure community of ours, Miles. There's a lot of bullshit and there's a lot of truth. And we really have to be discerning. This is really the time where we have to be discerning.
Yes.
So we've got to listen to people, but we can't take every single thing as gospel and suck it in.
This is very, very important. This is what I say as often as I can. Do not believe anything. Do not believe it. Always listen and do it with discernment. But for instance, one of my first basis things, this insane thing that we're making aliens in British bases in England, and we're making these cyborg program generated life form things, and the Germans were doing this in World War II. That's what we were doing here. We've been embedded completely, totally, and absolutely with the ETs. That's why it's UFOs of no defense significance, right? The point about it is if somebody comes up with a wacko story like that, you don't believe it. When you see signatures and little bits of information come along which point to the same thing. For instance, I later found out that from a completely independent source, Britain was making generated life forms for use on the lunar base.
Right.
So if you're going to create a life form, it's got to be, intelligent enough to receive its orders and commands and survive hostile conditions. That's one of the things about when you make transgenic things, they can survive very, very hostile conditions, and you can run them off by the thousand. That's what they were doing. So to believe that is to believe what was coming. You don't believe it. You just take it on board. And if new information comes along, that might be 10 years later, that confirms it. But, if somebody tells you that your house is on fire and you don't do anything about it, it's a bit late. So, that's when you believe something and you say, right, I'll go down and see. It might be very bad news, but you've got to be careful. But it's very easy to say this. Oh, don't believe anything. Just use your own discernment. How the hell do you do that? So you have to just be careful and just take care. But this whole UFO thing, there's a particular narrative. I mean, I've heard a certain individual say he's written the speech for President Trump. He knows everything, and he's telling President Trump what to do. This is what he's written this speech for him to say disclosure. He's stuck in the 1980s, and he's telling Trump, the president of the United States, what to say. I mean, this is nuts. And people will know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I look forward, Miles, to having many more very super interesting conversations with you, because I always say we're just scratching the surface here. Thank you so much for joining me today and spilling some tea. I'm very happy I didn't spill my tea. But there again, I do have a Queen mug, so I'm lucky.
I'm trying to get the author for Musical Truth, and I'm getting completely... Mark Devlin. The author of those books are Mark Devlin, and they've got a microphone on it like that. So that's, oh God. For God's sake.
Mark Devlin is the author, guys. Mark Devlin.
Just missed you. And now the Autobots got me. Can you see that? Yeah. Musical Truth. He's spoken at bases 3 times, and he's done a hell of a good job. He's done a whole expose of Paul McCartney and great detail. And there's he apologized. He says even ABBA are part of this whole thing, but that really hurts the Australians. Well, it really hurts me, because I think ABBA's a bloody good band.
The Swedish. It's not the Australians, the Swedish.
No, they were so big in Australia that they were going to use.
Oh, right.
They were going to get the band to reform, because the Australian population was so depressed that they needed to do something to try and lighten the load, because they really hammered Australia. Anyway, that's another thing. Musical Truth. Anyway, there it is.
That's actually very, very interesting. Might be a good.
Is show business. And remember, everything you're watching is show business. Show business.
We are on one great big stage. The world is a stage. But that would be a nice guest. Maybe bring on with you sometime. I wouldn't mind if you've spoken at your event. It'd been maybe nice to have him.
He did three things, and I think he's published a 4th book.
Nice.
But there's a little bit of a UFO disease syndrome there, but we'll leave that for another time.
We have plenty of time, such as next week, and we will see you back same time, same place. Thank you, Miles. Thank you to all our amazing viewers. I really appreciate you all with all the comments and stuff. I try and kind of keep an eye on the questions and see, but I try and get through them just in normal conversation anyway. But thank you, Miles. Is there anything you'd like to say, maybe in closing?
Well, yes. Right now, the Basis TV website's down. We've taken an attack. We are holding new groups of authors speaking here in Devizes locally the first Thursday of the month. The first one is Tina Bird. The second one will be Michael Shrimpton, who's talking about the secret German intelligence organization called the DVD. That's in every government, right through from American, British, Russian, and Chinese. It's very widespread and very detailed. He does, and then I've got Lucy Wyatt talking about the Doom Cult. And that is in the Devizes Rugby Club locally here in the Doom Cult is the Venetian Doom Cult, which is insidiously infused in all royal families and controlling structures. And they've well and truly done their homework, and they're in there everywhere. And I'll have Bob Osborne talking. He's busy writing his autobiography, and he was in the certain clubs in London where a lot of the Hogarth roundabout, a lot of building there, not necessarily 100% solid concrete. There's quite a few voids in there from people needed to get rid of. A lot of stuff, the old sort of concrete shoes. And then the main conference is going to be the third weekend of June at Bouverie Hall in the usual place. And we're going to have 3 days of that. We're going to have super soldiers there, Drago Reed, Sean Bond. And Sean Bond will be working with a double act, that's to say the wonderful Maria Wheatley, on these long-skulled people, ancient people who have been literally buried, and they built Stonehenge, and there's that long-skulled people. And for instance, Sean Bond is digging these skulls up in Mexico, and under ultraviolet light they glow. And Maria Wheatley has mentioned to me just recently that yes, these old skulls will glow under ultraviolet light, which means the stuff that he's digging up. And on those skulls are very long-skulled beings with wings. That's going to be at Basis 2026 International Disclosure, 19th, 20th, and 21st of June in Bouverie Hall in Pewsey, Wiltshire. So we're working, hopefully, my webmaster who's having to heal, he's taken a very big hit, and we'll see how we can continue with Basis TV as such. But right now, the main thing is that he heals and gets better. That's the one thing.
Absolutely. Wow. Sending good vibes for that. Well, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, your Basis project is coming up soon again. Wow, it feels like just the other day you had it, but here we are again, right?
Space-time density varies. We do not live in a linear time continuum.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's it from me.
Perfect. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I'm being eaten by the mosquitoes here. So what can I say? Thank you. And I want to just say so far, a huge big thank you so much to Jojo and Lisa D, who have both so far donated to my mom's carer. Guys, just doing a shout out again for those of you who didn't hear. And if anyone is in the position to be able to support her house burnt down today and all her kids, everything. I mean, there's a couple of things that they were able to save. So if there's anyone who can assist, obviously I'm doing what I can and getting my community involved here as well. But if there's anything, I'd really appreciate that if you guys can help in any way. I know she would too. Thank you, Nazy. I really do appreciate that. 1010. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, guys and girls, God bless you all. I will see you back tomorrow with Sherry Sweeney at 6 o'clock. This time, exactly this time tomorrow. Sherry Sweeney, great guest. Also I had her on before with Jerry Marzinski, co-author with him, and talking about, her journey through schizophrenia, what she's doing now. Amazing. These people are amazing that authentically heal through this. It's incredible to chat with them. Okay, guys, take care. Up until then, au revoir. Bye, Miles. See you soon.